So it's raining outside today. Gonna do a little work on the Mustang since we can't drive it. All right. So I know we got a full battery charge, which I'm sure makes a difference. Now let's see what happens with this amp gauge right here. You'll see it just bounce around. I hope you can see it's a little dark in here. When I'm going down the road, it kind of evens out, and then when I'm sitting at an idle, it'll start bouncing again. Might just be a faulty gauge by now, or maybe a wire. We're gonna find out. Yeah, I know it really doesn't make a difference, but that's just annoying as hell watching it when you're driving down the road. Okay, so I have a feeling this is our culprit right here. We're gonna check the connections on it, pull them off, put them back on, clean them with a little CRC or something like that, and or starting fluid, and we'll see what happens. Pops out. Okay. Give it a careful. This stuff evaporates pretty quick too, so. There we go. Some actual cleaner in there. Okay, so we got our old one off, and here's our new one. Get that magical crackling sound when the positive terminals hook back up. All right, let's go see. Step over our junk and around everything. Let's see what happens here. Alrighty, here we go. Well, I always like my first try to be the one that works, but I guess we're gonna have to dig into this a little more. Okay, so new voltage regulator. So that's not the problem unless they sold me a faulty one. I don't think they did. So we're gonna test the battery now. First thing is it's a 12 volt system. So we got our multimeter here. We got it set to volts, alternating current, or excuse me, direct current. And we got it set to 20 so we can get a reading on the 12 volt system. It should read more than 12, obviously. Okay, so we got 12.28, 12.29. Should be around 12.3, so we're good there. It's a reasonably new battery too, so that's a little odd. But next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna test it while it's running, and that should tell us whether the alternator's good or not. So give me just a second, I'm gonna fire this thing up. Yeah. While the car is running. Yep. I think 14.25 or 14.3 was supposed to be about perfect, so I don't think we're overcharging, but that tells me the alternator's working. Okay, so we had 12.3 volts with the car not running, which is right where the battery should be. We had 14.4. I think it was with the car running, which tells us that the alternator's working perfectly. And we just put a brand new voltage regulator in it, so the only other thing I can think of is we got a faulty gauge, which this could have been the original gauge that was in the car, I don't know. I guess we're gonna order a new gauge. Okay, so there's our gauge. We just gotta make sure it's a black faced gauge with white writing, which I think the one I saw in CJ Pony Parts was. I'm gonna go look here in a second. All the other gauges are working. You know, I really have been thinking about going with the digital instrument cluster for this car. So I'm gonna look into that as well. If I'm pulling this whole thing out, I might wanna get something done that I was wanting to do for a while. I don't know, I know it's not all original, but if it's an original part, it needs to work. And if it's not an original part, it needs to be great. So that's the way I look at my car. And let's go look at CJ Pony Parts and see what they got for both. Okay, so looking through CJ Pony Parts website here, there's a couple different gauges. It's a little confusing because the one I have, I'll show you a picture of it in a minute, actually has a bit of a little metal housing that veers off to the left of it, like a little shield, which looks like one that would go to a 68 Mustang GT. And the one they show for my car doesn't actually have that, which is a 66. So I don't know that they actually make a difference. I think they both fit in there, but I definitely want to make sure I get the right one. So you can see here on CJ Pony Parts, I love this website, by the way. These guys are great, and you can always call them and they'll talk you through anything. But just the regular instrument cluster is about $800 after you pay shipping and taxes to get one of those. So I'm looking for the digital one. I'm just going to search it here real quick, and obviously I'm going to have to spell digital correctly. But let's see here. As we scroll down, more bezels, that kind of stuff. All kinds of replacement parts, obviously, bulbs. But here's our digital ones. I'm a little shocked because I think they're actually a little cheaper. Everything I've read and seen, a lot of these things aren't just plug and play, so don't think that. But you do have your choices of, you know, what color or what type of trim package it was. I do like the way these look, but I just don't think I want to spend that kind of money right now to put one of these in my car when all I need to do is fix this gauge. And the max that new gauge is going to cost me is about 60 bucks. I don't know that I'm going to do that either. I'm probably going to check here in a minute and just see if I can, maybe it was a connection, could have been wired backwards, the way it was bouncing around all the time. But these are the digital gauges, and they really do look sweet to me. I like the way those things look. All right, so instrument panel comes out with 4 screws here, 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 and the last one's right there. Right there. There we go. My big hand in the way. So we're gonna try and take this out. Maybe I'll just check the connection on the gauge first, see maybe that's my problem. So I got all the screws out. One thing, guys, you ever notice that the best screwdriver, Phillips head screwdriver, in your toolbox is always the oldest one? That's the one that doesn't strip anything. I don't know, that thing's probably older than me. I probably got it from my dad. I don't know where it came from, but I'm thinking it came from him or his garage without him knowing it, maybe. Rest in peace, Pop. But yeah, that's the one that never strips. A Phillips head screwdriver is the oldest one. So I got all these screws out. The best screw holder right there, the console, obviously. We put the screwdriver down there in it with it, and be careful not to stab ourselves on it. And I don't know, I've never pulled this cluster out before, but I think I just got to work on it. I'm gonna have to put the camera down for a second. So here's my pro tip. Always make sure you look really close, because hey, look, we got a couple screws under here as well. So let's see if I can fish that one out. Right there it is. So I'm gonna pull those out real quick, and then our cluster should slide out. Okay, sorry for the glare, but when you guys try and remind me when I go to put this back in, the screws on the bottom, there's only 2 of them, are shorter than the screws on the top. And this thing already started to come out, so let's see here. If I can just pull this back. I don't know if I can one-hand this or not. Maybe. Okay, yeah, it's coming out now. All right, let's see here. I'm gonna have to set this camera up so I can use both hands and not pull a wire out anywhere. Just so you know, we almost had a tragedy. I was getting out of the car. I almost spilled my beer. All right, so hopefully this gives you enough angle to see me pulling this thing out. Let's see here. Be careful not to unplug it. Don't want to force it, but they have to. All right, so I wish I could tell you how easy this was. I'm getting the speedometer cable off, but it's not, especially with no slack in it whatsoever. And being left-handed, so I'm doing this with my right hand, but you you got to kind of finagle your hand up behind it like I got it. You can't see it, but over here, my right hand that I never use, and get that speedometer cable off the back. And then you can just kind of tilt this down. Okay, so I don't know if you can see down in there, but there are wires everywhere. So I'm gonna go get myself some tape and a Sharpie, and I'm gonna label all these as I pull them off so I don't fuck anything up. Excuse my language. Okay, got my tape, got my Sharpie. Always remember a couple things working on the electrical system. Disconnect the battery. Okay, also make sure you have every tool you need. Bingo. I'm gonna start labeling wires. Okay, so a couple things. There are a lot of wires in here, so I'm labeling them all because I'm not an electrician. I hate electricity. But a lot of these little bulbs, be careful. All you have to do is give them a little bit of a counterclockwise turn and they'll pull out. I wouldn't use, unless you've got the touch of a doctor or surgeon actually, I wouldn't use pliers on them because they will break easily. I didn't break any of them. I'm just using my bare hands on them, but they do pull out. They have a little resistance to them, but make sure you're labeling all these things. Okay, so we got the cluster out, and a cluster it was. Let's see if I can show you this. There you can see all of my light bulbs and wires for each gauge that I pulled, I labeled, and that crafty speedometer cable, which we'll be sneaky getting back in as well. But now we're gonna try and get this gauge out. Okay, so my workbench is my table miter saw. Yeah, I got all this wood here in a miter saw and I haven't built myself a workbench yet, but anyway, we got our cluster here. Screws take the back of it off. Looks like there's 4, 6 of them probably. And then this is the gauge in question. So I think all I have to do is take the shim and the 2 nuts out of there and it should pull out. We're gonna see here in a second. Okay, here we go, last screw. So we got 2, 4, 6, 8 on this thing. Hopefully that takes it off. Let's see here. Oh, look at that. Okay. While I'm at it, I may have to shine these bulb covers up a little bit, but this is the, nope, sorry. This is the gauge in question. I got it upside down. This bad boy right here. So, coming out, Mr. Amp Gauge. Pretty easy to come off, almost finger tight. So, let's do this. Oh, careful. I know you can't really see this. Let me spin it around. Yeah, and put something down so you don't scratch the front of your bezel either. That would suck. Clips, rings, and that bad boy is out. Okay, so cluster's out, everything's out, and if you can see here, the blue items are where your bulbs go, and then there's 2, one upper left, one upper right, which I believe are your turn signals. So we're replacing all these bulbs, and then we're gonna put this cluster back in. Okay, pro tip. I got it back in, I'm about to put the screws in. You can see it. If you're so inclined, take the steering wheel off first. Okay, just putting the screws back in the cluster, back onto the dash. You guys remember, short screws bottom, long screws top. That's right. Okay, so we put it back in. We got the wires on there. Now no bouncing. Could have been just a bad connection. I don't know, but it was definitely at the gauge was the problem. Well, we got off kind of easy on that one. We didn't have to replace the gauge. It just needed a better connection. If you enjoyed this video, if it helped you at all, please hit the like button and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next video.